If you're going to call yourself America First, but then betray America First every single time you get a chance, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene did, then you don't deserve to win your seat. Go run as a Democrat. This is what you want to do. You're from Massachusetts. You're not from Kentucky. Go run as a Democrat.
I'm not really sure that Congressman Thomas Massie has betrayed the Republicans. But since we're on the topic of betrayal, hey, Benny, you want to talk about your marriage? Anyway, let's move on to what this story is really about, which is, man, propagandists are out in full force against Congressman Thomas Massie, who is now dealing with a pretty tough primary challenge from an AIPAC-funded Republican in the primary for this House seat. Okay, so this is a House seat in Kentucky. Currently, the incumbent is Thomas Massie, but Thomas Massie is a unicorn in Congress in that, I might not agree with many of his policies. However, he's principled. And so he wanted the release of the Epstein files and was willing to work with Democrats. He was willing to reach across the aisle to make that happen. Trump didn't like that because he wanted to cover up the Epstein files. I guess Betty Johnson would like to aid and abet that. Thomas Massie also consistently votes against spending. Because unlike the liars who pretend to be worried about the debt or the deficit in Congress, Thomas Massie is actually sincere about it. So he doesn't want to keep going deeper and deeper into debt to fight Israel's wars. And that made Trump real mad. Okay. So that's what's going on here. And that's what led to Miriam Adelson, who bought Trump like a whore, to start funding a primary challenger to Thomas Massie. Because the one and only thing Miriam Adelson cares about is degenerate gambling, of course. That's how she built her fortune, and Israel. Yeah. So she didn't like the fact that Thomas Massie didn't want to keep shelling our resources out to a genocidal regime that doesn't benefit our country in any way, shape, or form. So she poured a lot of money into his challenger. So Massie's increasingly public breaks with Trump have made him the target of these Trump-aligned groups. MAGA Kentucky, which has spent $5.6 million on top of $1.3 million from the Galrin campaign itself. So Ed Galrin is the individual who's challenging Massie in the GOP primary in Kentucky. Additionally, the Republican Jewish Coalition has spent $4 million on ads supporting Ed Galrin, with AIPAC, Super PAC United Democracy Project spending another $2.6 million, and that's according to Ad Impact. So the race has become incredibly gross and messy. So there have been attack ads on both sides. The attack ads coming from the Israel lobby funded shill. Super gross. They put out an AI ad that made it seem like Thomas Massie was in a sexual relationship with AOC and Ilhan Omar. But in total, more than $25.6 million has been spent on ads in this primary race. And that's also according to Ad Impact. So both campaigns are combined for that figure. So this makes it the most expensive US primary in American history. And it got messier after Axios published a hit piece on Massie based on unfounded claims. A woman who is not credible made claims about him that I'm not going to repeat here. It was very obviously a hit piece. But according to Axios, others have called into question her credibility. She claimed, let me just read them because you guys should decide for yourselves if you think they're ridiculous. I think they're ridiculous. And I find it gross that Benny Johnson denied or provided cover for Trump when he was accused of far worse by many more women. But these like super flimsy, frivolous claims you're going to use to attack Thomas Massie. Yeah, we know how your bread is buttered, homeboy. We know. So according to Axios, Cynthia West, a former girlfriend of Massie's, accused him this week of offering her $5,000 to drop a wrongful termination complaint against his close ally, Representative Victoria Spartz. So apparently Massie, when they were dating, got his girlfriend hired by, Spartz's office. The two began dating shortly after his wife had passed away in December of 2024. And then in December, Massie allegedly arranged for her to work in Representative Spartz's office so they could be in DC together. In January of last year, the two broke up after Massie became, in her words, emotionally abusive because she refused to engage in behavior I wasn't comfortable with. Yeah, that's pretty vague. Okay, so it's obviously a hit on him in order to like destroy his candidacy. And by the way, she was later fired by Spartz's office, she said, because the complaint of the toxic work environment, Spartz's decision to hire a non-citizen for a district director job, and the representative's insistence on getting involved in Ukraine's elections. Okay, whatever. I'm not interested in West. I personally don't care what she has to say. And I don't find her claims credible because they're vague. They're super vague. And it's just, the timing is questionable. Anyway, according to Axios, she was also allegedly offered a settlement from Spartz's office in the tune of $60,000, but because it came with an NDI, non-disclosure agreement, NDA, she refused. So Massie's campaign denied the allegations made by her, telling Axios in a statement, these last-minute dirty tricks don't merit a response. The trashy lies they're putting out now demonstrate how desperate they are. Now, West stated that she has not been in contact with Donald Trump or Ed Galrein's campaign. But again, the timing of the report is super suspicious. And yesterday, Polymarket, which guys, okay, F Polymarket. Okay, seriously, I didn't even understand what Polymarket was, but now it's just a freaking degenerate betting site. Okay, it is not a poll. It's not a political poll. It's just normal degenerate gamblers gambling on politics on a website. But here's what Polymarket had posted yesterday. Justin, Thomas Massie's re-election odds are tanking amid hush money allegations from an ex-girlfriend. He's now projected to be unseated. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not buying it. So she says there was no hush money offered to the jealous Mrs. Massie wannabe. Thomas Massie is just being dishonestly smeared because his primary is next week and foreign money billionaires are trying to buy Kentucky's 4th district. Younger voters go out there and beat the spoon-fed Fox News viewers. But let's pivot to an actual recent poll, which does cause some concern here. So recent polls for the 4th district in Kentucky show that for the first time, Ed Galrein beat Thomas Massie. So he came in at 48.3% and Thomas Massie came in at 43.1%. That's not good. That's really, really not good. Now the question is this Qantas Insight poll credible? And I don't know, I question most polls, to be honest with you. There were some polls that were wildly wrong in the lead up to the 2024 election, also the 2016 election, as we know. But Qantas Insights was given a B/C rating from Nate Silver for whatever it's worth. So you might think it's not an A rating, it's not credible. However, Ipsos was also given a B rating. So do with that information what you will. Polling analyst Ettinger Mentum and the New York Times questions their transparency, saying that they may be using low-cost, undisclosed opt-in panel data. I have no idea. But even Massie himself has confessed that this is an incredibly close race. And I think it communicates something really awful to the American people if Massie loses. What it communicates is a foreign lobby can literally buy our elections, even in primary races, and there's nothing you can do about it. So Massie said the race is within the margin of error. I think it's going to be close. I really do. But he believes the winner of the GOP primary will come down to voter turnout. So show up and vote. But this whole debacle has led to an online spat between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Benny Johnson. I'm not going to read all of their back and forth to you. I'm going to save the fun for you so you can check it out yourselves. But she says this is a clinic on how to call out the lies of social media influencers that get paid to spew propaganda. Benny Johnson, who I thought was a friend, couldn't even give me the courtesy of asking me if any of these lies were true. TMZ and Daily Mail actually reached out, but not Benny. And Thomas Massie did not mistreat any woman, but happens to have a primary next week. So of course, comes out comes a story from a woman who is just jealous she isn't Mrs. Massie. So in our members section, which will happen immediately after the show ends today, I'm going to get into Benny Johnson's response to her and his claims. But the guy is a charlatan. Like, I think most people can tell at this point. And he's not just a charlatan when it comes to his the work he puts out, if you want to call it work. He's a charlatan when it comes to his own lifestyle, who he is as a person. So members only comes after the show. Make sure you check that out. tyt.com/join to become a member. And we'll see you there.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.